Okay, I have started the recording. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know what's fine. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So about myself, so I have around 4.5 plus years of experience in 8 Salesforce certifications. And right now I'm playing as a Salesforce developer for the data and AI modules. And I also have experience across multiple stacks in Salesforce as well. So today we'll be discussing more on the unstructured data, how we'll use the unstructured data through the intelligent context and document AI. Then we'll just go into some of the basic examples of like how we can leverage unstructured data, how we can use the feature and all those things. So now first I'll start with unstructured data. So as you all know, so in any type of business or in any ecosystem, the data which you can see is more on an unstructured perspective. So even though like you have a lot of structured data like Salesforce records, Salesforce object, maybe in some other terms like tables of data, but the most of the data which is available in the enterprise is an unstructured data. So unstructured data means it can be of any text file, it can be an audio, it can be a video, or those are the different types of data which you can categorize it as an unstructured data. And the structured data means it has a specific format where you can see the information, where you can use the storage. It will have a specific processing. It will have a specific way of handling the data and everything. But for an unstructured data, if you see, like as you don't have a structure, you don't know like what can be the content which is stored in the unstructured data. If you just take an example of a normal PDF file, you can have images, you can have tables, you can have graphs, you can have normal text, and normal text in the sense like different formats. Like if you just open a document, you can see headings, subheadings, and different structures, HTML content. So each of these content which you can see in any type of document makes sense. So I'll be opening one document and I'll show you how these things matters. So then you will get a better clarity on all these aspects. So the main difference is like whatever you see as an unstructured data has its own relevance. So even a small checkbox if you see in a document has its own relevance. So today we'll be going through how we can process the unstructured data and how we can get the benefits when we are trying to get inside the agentic data or inside the Agentforce. So the core concepts would be the unstructured data processing, and I'll just mention how we can just connect it to Agentforce, and the rest will be the standard Agentforce based procedure. There is no difference in that aspect. So first, let's see like how we are going to handle an unstructured data. So as you can see in my screen, for any type of unstructured data, before you use in any of the agentic ecosystem, you need to first process the unstructured data. Can you be on mute? Okay. So first we need to get the data in a proper way, and then only we will be able to process the unstructured data. So here, unstructured data processing is something termed as a RAG-based approach, where you are retrieving the data and then you are processing the data and you are keeping it ready, and then you will be performing the usage. So the steps, whatever you can see here. So first one is loading of data. So loading of data means you are getting the data from any of the source. And once the data is loaded, you will be performing or you will be chunking the data. So here the main part to understand this offline preparation is something which carries out inside the data 360. So this entire module or this entire section happens in data 360, be it for your agentic purpose or be it for any other purpose. So this entire module, whatever you can see, happens in data cloud. So you load a data and the data will get chunked. Chunked means you have a data and it is breaking the data into meaningful pieces of data. So for example, you have a very big paragraph of data, which has headings, which has tables, which has images. So this chunking and the chunking strategy will allow you to break the data into relevant information. Then you are vectorizing the data so that you will be able to, vectorizing and indexing will help you to understand for a machine perspective or for a system perspective, like how you are trying to retrieve, and each of these scores or each of the chunk will have its own score. So once you prepare this data, and I as a user, I'm going to ask some query on what I need to get. So when I ask a query, it will go and retrieve using this offline preparation or this unstructured data which is already there, and then it will be updated or it will be grounded, and then it will be returned back as an answer. Is this concept clear on what we are trying to discuss today? So this is the process which we are trying to discuss today. Are we clear on the concept of what we are going ahead? Or is
Yes.
there any queries? Okay. Okay. So now, I'm going back to the Salesforce because I have the content in Salesforce, not mainly as a PPT. So can you see my Salesforce screen?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing which we need to note here is what all are the ways with which you can get an unstructured data from any source to the data 360. So we have a lot of ways with which we can get the unstructured data. So first one is we can use the ingestion APIs. So ingestion API is a way with which you can define a schema or you can define a structure. And based on the structure, you will be able to get the data back. That is termed as ingestion API. So ingestion API is something which you only use when you don't have the relevant information or you don't have a standard connector available. So this can be used for structured data as well. So here you will be defining a structure as a YAML file. So maybe if I just open this test connector, so here you will be uploading an open API structure. This will define how your data looks like. And then here you will upload a open API file. And then you will be using this ingestion API. And the main ways with which you get the unstructured data is through the other connectors. So if I go into the other connectors, so we have a lot of connectors with which you can get the data from files, you can get the data from websites, you can get the data from any of these sources, like you can get it from AWS, you can get it from Google Drive. So you have the Confluence, you have Jira, you have Databricks. So you have around 100 plus sources of data which you can use to get the unstructured data into the data 360. So these are the sources which you can leverage to get the data. So here I'll be taking you through one simple example where I'm trying to get the data from a website. So that's the example which we'll be discussing today. And yeah, now if I start here, so for each type of data connector which you are setting up, the authentication differs. So for example, if I just click on this help.salesforce, so this is a connector which I did create. And here the main thing is like I'm trying to get the information from Dreamforce site. That's it. I'm not trying to do anything more. I'm just trying to get the information from the Dreamforce website. And here there are few things which you need to take care of. So each connector will have its own authentication mechanism. So for this, as it's a public website, I'm just mentioning anyone can access. Right now, you have a basic authentication using the user ID password based mechanism, but maybe in future, Salesforce will also plan to introduce an advanced based authentication, maybe using JWT token or some other. So right now, it's just a basic authentication which is available. And for different connectors, like so, for example, if you're using an AWS connector or Databricks connectors, for each and every connectors, the authentication mechanism differs. So a common way of authenticating most of the connector is you will have an authentication mechanism or an auth connector, and this auth connector will be then connected through the name credentials. like we'll have an external credentials, name credentials, and through the name credentials, we will be authenticating. So that's a very basic way which most of the connectors behave in the data 360. So for most of the connectors, the authentication is using the name credentials. For the name credentials, you will have an external credential as well as an authentication provider. So we'll configure all these information and then you will be authenticating the data. So that's a very simple way of how we are going to authenticate the data. So once the data is authenticated, the next step which we need to do is we need to get the data inside Data 360. So this connector will connect the data. The next step which we need to do is we need to get the data in a required format. So for that purpose, I'll quickly go to the data cloud. So any queries on connecting the data? Okay, I hope it's clear. So in data
Hello.
streams, yes.
So I joined now. Could you please explain from scratch a little bit like that, if you don't
Like
mind? Just what is the connector, how to connect that, like that.
okay, so you can in Salesforce Data Cloud setup, you will have something called as other connectors, where you can see hundreds of out-of-the-box connectors provided by Salesforce. Like you will have connectors of Google Drive, Amazon, Confluence, etc. And for different connectors, the authentication mechanism differs. So for most of the connectors, the standard authentication protocol which follows it will have an external credentials associated to and it will have a name credential. It will be having an authentication provider. So the basic setup is you will have the auth provider. So the auth provider can be any standard one or it can be a custom one which you can use. So auth provider will be there, and through the auth provider, then you will use that auth provider in the name credential, and using those credentials, you will be authenticated. So one key thing which you need to understand is like for any type of authentication, there is something called as data cloud org instance, tenant endpoint, or org ID, and all these things. So data cloud IPs should be whitelisted based on this org instance. Only then the authentication will be successful. So if you are not going to authenticate any connector, or if you are not going to authenticate and if you're just trying to get the public data, this is fine. But if you try to use any authenticated information, then you need to make sure that this homework, like based on this homework, so the data residency and everything is controlled based on this homework instance. So each homework instance has specific IPs which you need to whitelist, and this is a common issue which developers might face when they are trying to connect any type of external connectors into Data 360 because the IPs should be whitelisted in the system, and only then you can successfully initialize the connector. So that's on this homework detail. I mean, that's on this initial connector. And once the data is connected, you will be directly going into the data stream. You can click on new. And here you can see all the available connectors, whatever you saw there. And so these are the all available connectors. And you just need to click. So for example, if I just click on this connector, yeah, I'll just click on this Google BigQuery. Okay. So you can select any sort of connectors, and then you will be able to use this. And here you need to make sure that there are a lot of beta connectors. And whenever you're using a beta connector, you need to be aware of the Salesforce standard policies which you are trying to use. And here you have the ingestion APIs, the connectors from mobile app, you have the connectors from the website, you have the connectors of standard Salesforce CRM. So these are the other connectors. So I have established the connectors to these four as of now in the org. So you will be able to, for example, if I just click on this Adobe Marketer, it won't be able to proceed because I only initialized the connection for these four. I haven't initialized connection for anything else. And yeah, you will be able to use the connector from any file upload or data cache. So this is also possible for anyone. But these are the connectors which is active in my current org. That's why you won't be able to use any other connectors. So for each connector, so for a connector to be visible as a connected source, you need to perform the authentication. So that's how you will be creating a data store. So if you have an ingestion API, you will use this ingestion API and create. If you have a mobile app, you will use this one. If it's a website, you will use this. If it's from the Salesforce CRM, you will use the Salesforce CRM and use the or connect the data. Now the next thing is for our specific case, like we have created a connector. So if I just go to yeah, so if I just go to the data lake objects and if I just click on new, okay. So as we are trying to get the data from, if you are trying to get the data from external files, you can use this. If it is from existing object, you can use this. If you want to get from a data kit, you can use that. So here I am trying to get the data from external connector that is using web crawler. So web crawler means you are just trying to get the data from any website. So, and if I just go back to my other connectors, which is being set up here. So I did a setup for a normal connector using the web crawler, and the data is from the Dreamforce page. Here, if you see the data which I'm trying to retrieve is from the Dreamforce page. And if I just go to this, click on this web crawler connector, click on next. So it will help, it will tell you what all connections are available. So I'm just trying to use the help.salesforce connection. The next thing is crawl depth. So to how many pages you need to get in. So for example, if I just go into the Dreamforce page, so this is a first page, but if I just click on home and if I just go to why Dreamforce, so it will go inside the Dreamforce. So initially the page was in Dreamforce. Now it went inside why Dreamforce. So you are going inside the page. You are traversing inside the page. So the crawl depth will tell you like what should be the limit of pages you need to get in to get the information. The next thing is if you want to exclude any page element, then you can mention the excluding the page element. And you can also include header, footer, menu, navigation. So that's also something which you can control. And here you can mention how what all web pages you need to include. Maybe like you will have thousands of pages, but you don't need all the pages. You just need to have 2 or 3 pages. So that's also something which you can control when you are trying to set up this connector. And here you need to define the object name, API name, all other information. And after this, it will allow you to create the data. So for example, I'll just mention the test 3 because I'm not going to create anything. And if I just click on next, it will tell you whether I need to use a flip embedding model or what model I should use. And it will automatically create a semantic search. So this means it will automatically chunk your data. Or else it won't be chunking the data, it will just create the data in the system. So these are the configurations which is available. And the connector which I showed you right now is a web crawler connector, and the configuration differs for each and every connector. So that is something which you need to be aware. Now, if I just go into my data explorer to see what exactly is available from my web crawler connector, which I use for help.salesforce. So if I just go into this help, so you have this as the connector, that is a directory table, and you have the chunk, you have the indexing data, and you have the transcribing content. So these are the 3 information which will be created whenever you ingest any data. If you just go to chunk, so chunk will have the entire information or entire content of whatever what we got. If I just expand this, I can see the image contains Salesforce logo, which is presented. So that was the information. And if I just go here, it is page number 1, type is the, and what is the type of file, what is the source of information. So you can see, okay, from where you got the data, what is the type of data, what is the sequence of data. So you will be able to see like how the data is present, how the data is retrieved. Here you can see there is a chunk with privacy at salesforce.com. So this is a support document. So you can see how the data is pulled in from that source and is stored inside your Data 360. Is it clear till now?
Yes.
Okay. So once you have this chunk, so by default, if you are using any external connectors, Salesforce will create a chunk which is an expected behavior. And now if I just go back to something called a search index. So search index is a feature which will enable you to perform a search, and it will help you to go into the data which is loaded and to perform and refine the search. So for example, if I just click on the Salesforce Help Connector, this is created by default. If I just click on the Salesforce Help Connector, we can just see what all are the type of information which is available. So if I go to this configuration part, you can see for a HTML file, it is using passage extraction. So if you can recollect the chunking or the strategy which you need to adopt. So for each type of file, we need to adopt a different strategy. So if it's a paragraph, you need to use passage-based chunking. If you have the content defined as sections, you need to use section-aware chunking. If the data is a conversation-based, like to and fro communication, then you need to use conversation-based chunking. So the chunking strategy is something which defines how you want to process the information. So these are the types of data which Salesforce identified for that file, which I have generated. So XML is there, messaging is there, EML is there, CSV is there, XLSX, PPT, DocX, RTF, JPG. So for each type of data, Salesforce identifies the type of chunking strategy which you need to do. So by default, this will identify, but yeah, you still have an option with which you will be able to process or you will be able to make a change. And you can also see the process history. So this search index is something which runs every day. Every day it will run. You can see 30, 29, 28, 27. So it will run every day. You can see how many records were processed, how many were skipped, what size of records processed, the chunks created, the number of chunks deleted. So you'll be able to see what all processing happened per day. So when you create a search index, you need to make sure that you are only creating the search index only on top of relevant data, or else your credits will be consumed very soon. You can see the process data is 15,000. Here you can see the size of the data. So whenever you create a search index or whenever you chunk the data, you need to be aware of the credit perspective, because whenever you're processing an unstructured data, the consumption is not the same. Structured data consumes less. Unstructured data consumes a lot in terms of usage. And if the strategy is not clearly defined, then the credits will be consumed too fast. So that's a really important term or really important feature which everyone should be aware of, whoever is working on the unstructured data. Now I'll go into search index. So it's not required that you need to always have the search index created by default. You can simply create a new search index and it will give you three options. One is easy setup, where you will just be guided to 2 or 3 steps. The next one is advanced setups, where you have better control. And third one is from data kit. So data kit means that's the way with which you will deploy from org1 to org. So I'll just show you like how we can get the data from an advanced setup. So any queries?
Yeah, Abhishek, there is one offline query. In order to, when we check the unstructured data, you mentioned like the consume also will be get more. So where we can able to see there in real time. So what was my the last consumed data, and after I
Okay.
unstructured that. So that place I just want to.
Okay, so you can only view the consumption in production. There is no way with which you can view the consumption in any of the sandboxes. There is no such feature. So we have a feature called as digital wallet in the production instance, where you can see the rolled up consumption from sandboxes as well. So it's only available in production, and the consumption used, which is there in the sandboxes, will be displayed as a sandbox consumption inside the production. you can't view the consumption in Sandbox. That's the first thing. And this consumption card or the digital wallet refreshes once a day. So maybe like the credits which you consume today, you will be able to see that tomorrow. You can't view the consumption at the same moment. That's not possible.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So here, if I just go inside the search index filter and if I just try to create, so you have a lot of objects like structured object is there, you will have unstructured data model is there. So you have different types of object where you can create the search index. So I just want you to look into this, what all options are available on the left. I just click on my account object and click on next. You can see that the parsing, pre-processing, those were two components which were there that got removed. So the key thing is for structured data model object, you won't be able to do any of the pre-processing as of today. So pre-processing means, so if you want to clean up the data before you chunk it, so that is something which you can do using pre-processing. So as of today, Salesforce does not allow you to clean up your structured data before you perform the chunking. So that's a key aspect which you need to be aware of. And in structured data, when do we need the cleanup? So we have something called as data transform, which will help you to clear up the data in Data 360. But about that, so for example, you have a Salesforce record called opportunity, and you have the a quote attached to the opportunity. So you are trying to bring in that quote and you are trying to chunk the data. So then the thing is, you are using the opportunity and its associated quote. So in that case, you will have this include files attachment enabled and you will be able to include the file attachment. So if it is a file, it's an unstructured data. But as of today, Salesforce doesn't support any of the unstructured data processing. Any of the unstructured data pre-processing when you are trying to create a search index. That is not currently supported, and we are expecting that to be live sooner. Whenever Salesforce decides. So that's not in our hand. So the unstructured data processing, unstructured data pre-processing will only work for unstructured data model object. Is this concept clear? Hello? Am I audible? Or?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Guys, feel
So
free
now,
to raise your queries if you are not good at your mic, so you can feel free to use the chat window.
yeah. And the next thing is you have two types of searches. One is vector search and other is hybrid search. So if you open a document, so I'll just use this document for an example. So if I go into this document, so this is a Salesforce document. Here you have information like this is a heading. These are the information. This is something which is highlighted as a note. This will take you to a different page. These are different types of information. And if I just go down, you have a really good diagram which will help you to understand the concepts and everything. So you have the information in different structure. As a user, I can search something like omnichannel, or I can search something with the keyword, or I can search with its meaning. Maybe I don't need to actually search with the same word. I can just search something which means this specific content. So in this unstructured data process, in the search index, we have 2 points. One is, so we have 2 points, and the first one is processing the data using a vector search and processing the data using a hybrid search. So here you can see vector search uses numeric representations of content to retrieve the data based on semantic similarity. So semantic similarity means it will just check the semantic content which is there in the system. At the same time, if it goes to hybrid search, it will use two things. One, it will check based on the meaning of the content, and at the same time, it will check for the keyword. So this is something which you need to be aware of when you are trying to choose the search index type. Now what I'll try to do is I'll just try to create it on the unstructured data which I already have. So if I just go create an unstructured data, select the unstructured data model object, you have a default parser which will help you to parse the data. And if you want to use any LLM based parsing, you can select what LLM you need to use. Right now you only have GPT-4. You can mention like how you need to parse the data, what all things you need to consider when you are parsing a data. So this comes by default. You will be able to change and make all the required changes as expected. So you have multiple parsers which is available. And the next thing which you can see is pre-processing. The pre-processing means whether you want to process any of the visual data or you don't need to do any processing. You just use it as it is. So you also have an option to pre-process the data with LLM based content, and here also you only have GPT 4.0. And key thing to keep in mind is parsing and pre-processing will consume your credits. Parsing and pre-processing consumes usage. It's not for free. So whenever you are trying to interact with an LLM, it will consume the usage. And here you will be able to select what is the strategy which you are going to adopt, whether you want to strip the HTML or remove the HTML, and what's the maximum tokens which you can use. So in any of the LLM based interactions, token is important. So for example, I think tokenizer. If I just open this open AI tokenizer, and if I just search for one symbol word, test, you can see it consumes a single token. You see, so based on the characters, like you can see, okay, so this test customer which I wrote, it has 12 characters and it consumes 3 tokens. So based on the content, the token consumption will vary a lot. So you need to be aware of whenever you are trying to interact with any LLM, because the usage of all the LLM is based on the number of tokens which is being consumed. So if I just removed this, now you see it's a 3 token, and if I just add this, it's 2 tokens. So there are a lot of things which will consider when you're trying to generate a token. And it's different for different models. So if I just use the same for a different model, the token utilization differs. So you need to be well aware of what you are trying to do when you're trying to decide which LLM, which token, and each of these decision makers will impact your pricing. And the next thing is maximum token. So maximum token will be set for most of the LLM. Maximum token size which it can adopt in a single transaction. So that is also something you need to keep in mind. And these are the ways with which you will be able to perform the chunking. And the next thing is called as overlap token. So if you want to overlap a specific content from overlap a specific token from the previous one, then you will be able to do so. And the other important concept is called as prepend field chunk. So maybe like if you want to easily understand a specific chunk by adding some specific information for the chunk. So for example, if it is for a like for example, if you just add the file name or some metadata, some content inside the chunk, every chunk will have that field, so that whenever you are performing a search, you will be able to understand, okay, so I have this keyword, then this is the type of chunk which I am going to get. And similarly, like you have a lot of ways with which you will be able to perform all these data. And the next thing is you can also enable the post processing, where the AI will generate the summaries, AI will generate the meaningful metadata of the chunks which is being generated. So any queries here? In chunking, pre-processing, or parsing? I hope it's clear. The next thing is the vectorization strategy. So how you need to, like which LLM model you need to use to vectorize your data or to chunk your data. So we have right now, we have 4. This is the standard E5 large V2 embedding model. So for each of the model, you can see how it process the data. And you have these two models, that is multilingual E5 and multilingual CLIP. And these two models these two models create chunks, even though your data is in different language. And each model will have a different token utilization, will have a different reach, and the consumption will also vary. So you can see all these details, like this is in the specific URL or the specific link just mentioned. And once you select the fields for filtering, so here you can also add filters based on specific field, direct fields or related fields which you can add. And after that, you will be able to rank the data. So maybe if you want to rank it based on the popularity or recent data, so you will be able to rank the data on popularity or recency of data. So that's also possible. And after this, you just need to review the structure and then you just need to build it. Is this concept clear? Because this is a core concept which I just took you through right now. I hope it's clear and I can't find any queries or okay, I can see one yes. Maybe can someone else also reply? Because the other 2 or 3 topics which I'm going to quickly cover is also based on this concept. Others maybe can you just add it on chat at least. Okay, I'll go back to that. Okay, so now if I just go back to the search box, which I have created. So there are a lot of issues or there are a lot of uh, challenges which you will face when you are just trying to create a normal search box. Like you don't know, okay, so you don't know what should be the ideal pre-processing content which you need to use because there is no way with which you will go into each and every document and understand what is the pre-processing content which you need to use, what should be the information which you need to get and everything. So to help you build the search index clearly with a proper pre-processing, we have something called as intelligent context. So intelligent context will give or will help you to build a search index in a proper way where you will upload a sample document. You will then it will then generate the chunks. Like if I just click on this compare with source, it will then generate the chunks. And once the chunks are generated, Salesforce will automatically create a default script for parsing, how it should parse, how it should perform the processing, and all those things. And if you are not comfortable on how it processed, you can test it with this question. You can ask a question on like for example, and you guide me on omnichannel. So this is an example which I'm just typing here. So it will get inside the chunks which are generated and you can test it before you put it in line. So this intelligent context is a way which allows you to test how the chunking would be, how the chunked data would be when you are processing it through either through the Agentforce or through some other points. So this is a place where you can play around, you can do the testing, you can execute everything, and then you can do it for the exact business case. And here you will be also able to change the model. You can change, I mean, based on how the content is generated, you can decide, okay, do I need to add something more in the prompt? Maybe I need to add image processing. Maybe I need to change the model. I need to change the chunking rules. I need to change the strategy. So there are a lot of things which you can decide. Maybe if you need, if you can change the parsing model as well. So all these things can be decided when you are trying to when you get the information. For example, the question which I asked is, what is an omnichannel flow? It got me the information. It gave me how to create the data. Like it gave a lot of things. Now, if I just go to this chunk, I can see what is the reference of this. So here for this, it mentioned the confidence score as 0.83. So it means that it got around 80% of confidence from this specific chunk. You just click on this chunk. So yeah, this is the chunk which it used. So just click on this. You can see setup omni-channel, feature comparison, support for apps, and this information. All feature omni-channel enhancements stand up. So this is one chunk where it got the information, and this is the other chunk where it got the other information. Here you can try around, understand, and see whether you are getting the relevant information in relevant manner or not. If you are satisfied, well and good, you can publish it and you can use this as the strategy for your pre-processing of the data. Is this clear on what intelligent context can do? Because this is a new feature which is released in 4.5 months old. I hope it's clear for you. And you just need to click on publish. After that, you will be able to use it as. The next thing is document AI. So document AI is also a concept which Salesforce released where, so as you all know, like even though the data is an unstructured one, it will still have a structure. So for example, a resume, for example, a quote, for example, an order form, for example, an invoice. So all these things have a structure of information, even though the content which is inside is unstructured. So it's an unstructured file or it's a file, but it still has a structure. So for example, you can see this resume at the top, you have the name, you have the address, you have the mobile number, email address, the LinkedIn, the profile information, the experience information, the education, skills, activities. So this is a structure. Even if you say it's an unstructured data, it is still having a structure inside the unstructured data. So to handle those data, which is an unstructured but it has a structure inside, Salesforce released something called as document AI. And for document AI, you can use Gemini 2.5 Flash and OpenAI GPT-4. And here you can just upload a structure of data. You can create the output manually as well. What all should be the tables, what are the structure which you need. You can also use the LLM auto extraction. So what this LLM auto extraction does is it will understand the structure of data or it will understand. So for example, it understood these are the fields. It has a name, it has an address, phone, email, LinkedIn, profile summary, and interest. And if I go into table, it understood, okay, experience is a table where it has title, company, start date, end date. You can add column if required. The next table is education, where it has degree, field of study, graduation date, institution, location. And if I just go to skills, it has one section. It just has a skill section. In a similar way, you can understand what all are the content, what all are the data which is available here. You can also add a prompt to validate. Now, if I just click on test, I'm just checking how this unstructured data is giving me a structured output. If I just click on this preview, you can see. So these are the expenses. Restaurant manager. First one is Kotosoba Grill, September 20XX to the present. This is the second one. So you can see the experience. The next one is if I just go into the education preview, you can see BS. You can see BS in Business Administration June 2002X. So you can see this information. If I just go into skills, similarly, you can see all the skills. And for example, here you can see the entire information being populated. So whenever you want to process an unstructured data in a structured manner, you will be utilizing this concept called as document AI. Is this clear? Hello? Or any queries? I just need to show
Yes.
you one last. Yes?
Yes, it's fine so far. Thank you.
So the last thing which I just want to take you through is Agentforce Data Library. So Agentforce Data Library is also a same type, where you will be parsing the unstructured data and you will be directly using it inside the Agentforce. So here, instead of these files, you also have the option to select other types of data. Like you also have the option to select knowledge files, web, and custom retriever. And retriever is something which you can create using the search index. So retrievers will help you to retrieve the information back to the data 360 or back to the Agentforce. So once you configure this Agentforce data library, you just need to add this Agentforce data library inside the Agentforce agent, and it will start to use this feature. So the entire thing happens in data 360. The only thing which you will do inside Agentforce is just to uh, yeah. The only thing which you will do inside the Agentforce is you will just configure the Agentforce data library. That's it. The rest, everything is done on data 360 page or inside data 360, because the entire data processing or the entire data-based process happens in data 360. There is nothing related to data which happens inside the Agentforce. Every data is processed there. Specific to the unstructured data, everything is processed there. You will then pull it back from data 360 and you will use it inside your Agentforce. That is a core concept which I thought of discussing on this session. So there are other ways with which you can retrieve the data, like you can use a retriever, you can use a prompt template, and then you can use a retriever inside the prompt template. You can use queries. So data 360 gives you query, like you have an option to create your own SQL query. So SQL query, it's a pure SQL, not even SOQL. It's a pure SQL query which you can write in the query editor, and you will be able to use this query using the APIs which Data 360 provides. You will be able to get the information from this query. So here you can use the joins, you can use the different contents, and everything is available. Like for example, select star from. So it's a pure SQL query which you can play to interact with the data and see how the data is returned, and you can fine tune the query. So maybe like you don't want to directly use a retriever. You want to have more context on what is the query keyword or what all files it should return. So you can add a lot of filters in the SQL query. And once you have added the filters in SQL query, you can execute this SQL query using Apex, and then you can get the information back to the Agentforce. That's also a way with which you will be able to get the information. And if you want to connect the data into data library, you just need to go to the Agentforce builder, click on the data library, and you will just connecting the data. So I hope you all have at least visited this new agent builder page. If not, it's the right time, because this new agent builder will give you a better programmatic control on how you are trying to interact with the agent, how you are configuring. Because this new agent builder has whole lot of features, it will give you a really good control on what you need to do, how you need to do, and what all features it can access. So I think we are good, but any queries or any points?
Okay, fantastic session, Abhishek, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. Before we move on, queries, I'd like to have few questions to the audience, people who are joining here. So how many of you started using Agentforce and Data Cloud in your project? If yes, just type in the chat window, yes. Currently using in your project. Okay, Muthu is using. Okay, great, no issues. So I think Nisha and Akash are trying to type, but it's taking time. Yes, only Agentforce just for learning. Okay. So why we want to learn Agentforce? So whether we can learn only Agentforce or whether we need to learn Agentforce along with the data cloud. Hope you people done your R&D from your end with respect to the learning point of view. Any idea? So since you are working professional, I can see a lot of people coming from Salesforce developer background. So how the future is going to be with respect to Agentforce and data cloud, AI agent is getting big picture in all the area. So how we want to leverage into the Salesforce ecosystem? There are many updates are keep coming. There is a headless 360, Salesforce headless 360 is coming up. So any thoughts on that? If you are able to unmute, you can feel free to unmute. You can talk instead of typing.
I Prabhu.
Hi.
Uh, I think the headless 360, what I could see is a major architectural initiative by Salesforce.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that it is then you no longer need any kind of web browser or traditional user interface to interact with Salesforce. So that is what the core idea. I think what they are coming up with headless 360.
Yes. Correct. You are correct. The reason, compete it should compete, but there are a lot of competitor also available in the market of in CRM side. So they want to come up with more ideas. That is a one part where we can see the headless 360. They will be keep adding a number of initiatives, the new feature and enhancement into the Salesforce ecosystem. Okay, you people having a good amount of experience, so please keep in touch of learning all the new release items and attending a Dreamforce event or any activity which is happening in India or in virtual. And whenever we feel we would like to share something, we will be having this kind of weekend session. We will share our knowledge and experience. So, but here the participation need to be in both sides. So you people also need to be active and come up with more questions and any implementation challenges, any ideas you want to share, or if you feel like, if you are interested to showcase your skills with respect to any Agentforce and Data Cloud. Apart from Agentforce Data Cloud, also you can feel free to share. So that is how the community will go, and we will share our knowledge, and you people will be gain from there, and you can also share. So that is the initiative where I have been brought into this name Explore Salesforce. And any open query before we wind up this session? Okay, great. So you can feel free to join the WhatsApp group and check out the YouTube. I'm going to update the recorded version also. You can share with your friends and colleagues if someone interested, but they are not able to join here. And I'm really very happy to share all the knowledgeful information. And once again, special thanks to Abhishek. You are keep sharing your knowledge against on the Agentforce and Data Cloud to the community and being a good mentor for this Explore Salesforce community. And if you feel any feedback, you will be getting a TopMet link after some time. So feel free to share your feedback in the TopMet so that it will really encourage us. So in order to continue this kind of session. Okay, thank you, Dayanath, for your feedback, and feel free
Sure.
to update in the
Thanks a lot.
TopMet also whenever you get time. Okay, great. I think we are good. Thank you, Abhishek, one more time, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek. Good day.